Hello, my dear friends! Welcome to Russian with Passion. Today we're going to continue studying Russian tenses. We have already talked about present tense and past tense. If you haven't watched those videos and you need to study these topics, well, you can take a look at these two classes. But today we are going to focus on Russian future tense. In Russian, we don't have so many tenses as in English. In English, there are 12 tenses, OMG. In Russian, there are just 3, past, present, and future. However, in Russian, there are also aspects, which show whether the action has finished already, or it is an ongoing action, continuous action, regular action, and so on. If you don't remember what aspects are in Russian, you can also check this class out. But let's focus on Russian future tense. There are 2 forms of future in Russian, a simple form and a compound form. When do we use each? We use a simple form, which consists of just one verb form, when we deal with perfective verbs. Perfective, it is an aspect of a verb. So we use simple when we deal with perfective verbs. Verbs which denote finished actions when we have a result. For example, я поговорю с ним. I will speak with him. In English, usually we use here future simple or future perfect. Now, there is a compound form which consists of 2 verb forms. There are 2 verbs. There is an auxiliary verb like in English. So this form is very close to future simple form. Well, according to the logic. So we use a compound form of future when we deal with imperfective verbs. Once again, imperfective is an aspect of verbs. And usually such verbs denote ongoing actions or continuous actions or regular actions. An example, я буду говорить с ним. Here we usually use future simple, I will speak with him, future continuous, I will be speaking with him, and future perfect continuous, I will have been speaking with him. By the way, here, when we deal with simple and therefore perfective, future simple is much more common than here. So, imperfective verbs usually presuppose using in English future continuous and future perfect continuous. So, continuous. Or future simple, but when we talk about regular actions, not just facts, but regular actions. Я буду говорить с ним каждый день. I will speak with him every day. Я буду говорить с ним завтра в 3 часа дня. I will be speaking with him tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Я поговорю с ним. I will speak with him. Not a regular action, but a simple fact. Я поговорю с ним до обеда. I will have spoken with him till noon. Till lunch. Okay, so 2 forms. Now let's talk about each form in particular. Now we're going to talk about the way future tense is formed in Russian. So, first let's focus on the simple future form. Here, we should take into consideration persons and numbers. So, we deal with conjugation of verbs. And what's important and what's interesting and what makes it easier is that we use the same logic, the same rules as we use for present tense forms. However, in present, we can only work with imperfective verbs, while in future we can use perfective verbs. And perfective verbs have the same endings in future as imperfective verbs do in present. Let's conjugate one verb, поговорить, to speak, when we talk about a finished action and we have a result, or when we talk about a fact in future. Я поговорю, I will speak, or I will have spoken. Я поговорю. As you can see, we use the stem of the verb, that is, we take the verb and remove the ending, ить in this case. Поговорить, we remove it and add the ending of present, in this case future for perfective verbs, you. Stem plus present tense endings. That's the general rule. Я поговорю. Ты поговоришь. Он поговорит. Она поговорит. Оно поговорит. Мы поговорим. Вы поговорите. Они поговорят. So, here, be careful and note the conjugation types of verbs. If you watch this class devoted to present tense, you will see that the endings depend on the conjugation type of verbs. There are two types, the first and the second. So I strongly recommend watching this video so that you would see what endings we use when. Now I don't want to waste our time. The general rule we should remember here is that the endings are the same as in present for imperfective verbs. But here we deal with perfective verbs, verbs which denote finished actions. One very important aspect here is that when we deal with verbs of the second conjugation type, we should remove the last three letters from the infinitive. For example, поговорить, we remove и, те, the soft sign. Ить, three letters. And we say поговорю, not поговорю. But if we take the first conjugation type verb, for example, прочитать, we remove just the two last letters, t, soft sign. That's why я прочитаю. We will have it like this. Я прочитаю. So прочитаю. Better watch that class to clear things out. So now we're going to talk about the compound future form when we deal with imperfective verbs. Do you remember? So we talk about actions which are regular or continuous, ongoing in future. So in this case we use the following structure. After the subject we need the auxiliary verb быть. And then we use the infinitive of the verb we need, of the full verb, of the meaningful verb. For example, я буду говорить. I will speak, a regular action in future, or I will be speaking, a continuous action in future. Notice that быть changes its forms according to persons and numbers. So быть changes, but the full verb doesn't change. It is the same everywhere. So let's conjugate the verb говорить, to speak. Я буду говорить. Ты будешь говорить. Он будет говорить. Она будет говорить. Оно будет говорить. Мы будем говорить. Вы будете говорить. Они будут говорить. So, as I have already mentioned, this form, compound future form, looks almost exactly the same as future simple form in English. We use an auxiliary verb plus the infinitive, without the particle to, of course. Here we use the auxiliary verb быть and the initial form of the verb, the form which we find in the dictionary. Говорить, to speak. Говорить is an imperfective verb. That's why when we want to use it in future, we use the compound future form. Now let's practice a little. We'll take one pair of verbs. The meaning will be very close, but one of the verbs will be imperfective and the other will be perfective. So we'll have to use different forms of future. We'll take the verbs хотеть and захотеть. Хотеть, want, is an imperfective verb, and захотеть with the prefix is a perfective verb. With the verb хотеть, which is imperfective, everything is very simple. We just take the infinitive form and put it in each position. So we have я буду хотеть, ты будешь хотеть, он будет хотеть, она будет хотеть, оно будет хотеть, мы будем хотеть, вы будете хотеть, они будут хотеть. Very simple. Now, the verb захотеть is perfective, and that's why we use the simple future form. Я захочу, ты захочешь, он захочет, она захочет, оно захочет, мы захотим, вы захотите, они захотят. Do not forget that when we deal with perfective verbs, we think about a finished action or a fact in future. Also notice that here the last consonant within the stem is not t but ch. It happens sometimes, and we'll talk about such changes in particular later. You can also use dictionaries to help you conjugate verbs. For example, the Silver Book of Russian Verbs. Now, to practice a little bit more, I want you to conjugate a couple of more pairs of verbs. And in each pair, you'll have an imperfective verb and a perfective verb. And therefore, you'll have to use two different future forms, simple or compound. So be careful and make sure to practice. Define which verb is perfective and which one is imperfective. Create two columns, imperfective and perfective verbs. Now check. So you are ready to do the exercise now. That's it for today. I hope that you liked this video. If you did, please press the button, like it, share it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I hope to see you soon. Happy Russian and English practice. Bye-bye.